palace on the Gulf, and we were sitting in the front room, the salon of the house, and we heard a car pull up, and she said her exact words: "So help me God, if he came home with another Bentley, I'm gonna kill him."
Zardari,
Yeah.
her husband.
And I said to my boss afterwards, she makes $60,000 a year. She lives in a $5 million house, and he has a collection of Bentleys. Aren't they ashamed of themselves? Like, how can they go back to Pakistan and look the Pakistani people in the face when their people don't even have shoes and enough food to eat? Like, I understand corruption is a problem there, but that level of corruption?
Yeah.
Come on. Well, those are the kinds of politicians that the Pakistani people have to deal with.
You talked about Benazir Bhutto. You talked about Zardari. Zardari is the current president over here.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now going back to the nuclear issue, in this war that happened in May, India for the first time escalated it to a level where we had cruise missiles flying into Pakistan with direct hits at
Yes.
the time. And from the Indian side, this constant line is
Here's a guy who wants to put America first, and
Exactly.
he's asking the same questions that I'm asking now,
Exactly right.
and I just want to know why.
This pro-Israel thing has been going on for so long that most Americans, I think, have fallen into its propaganda. And it's led by wealthy, in most cases, Jewish voters who have donated money to AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which is essentially the Israel lobby. And they spend millions, tens of millions of dollars every single year on political races across the country at every level. It's not just Congress. It's the state races and even the local races.
Also, they from the grassroots.
From the grassroots, and I'll get back to that in a second. If you are not 100% pro-Israel, they will run a candidate against you, and they'll spend millions of dollars to beat you. And they're successful.
So they're playing the system.
Yeah. And they've spread this idea around the United States that has taken hold that if you're not pro-Israel, like somebody asked me this the other day, are you pro-Israel? And I said, no. You're with the Iranians? It's like, what? No, no, I'm not with the Iranians. Like, what's wrong with you? Or you're with Al-Qaeda? No, I'm not with Al-Qaeda. Are you crazy? I just don't think that the Israeli policy of that was so much fun. But for me, the driving was better because they put you in these scenarios where the whole thing was made up. American lives were lost because of this. He said he did it because he wanted to emigrate to the United States. And this was what we wanted to hear anyway. So he thought if he gave us enough information, even if it was just from the newspapers, we would make him an American citizen. Curveball. One of the greatest intelligence failures in modern CIA history.
There was another thing too. The yellow cake uranium claims.
Yeah. So we had a case officer named Valerie Plame. Valerie was married to a State Department officer. His name is escaping me now. Anyway, he was the deputy chief of mission in Baghdad when we still had diplomatic relations with the Iraqis. And then he became ambassador to Niger. And so it came time for the State of the Union address. And the CIA always gets a chop on the State of the Union. They always send it to us about 4 days before the president delivers it, and we make whatever changes we deem necessary. So in the State of the Union address, it said that the Iraqis had asked the government of Niger to provide them with yellow cake uranium. They mine uranium in Niger for the purpose of building a nuclear weapon. That just wasn't true. So George Tenet, and the guys called me in London. They said, hey, we have a serious problem. I said, what kind of problem? They said, we've had 55,000 clicks on the buy tickets button.
We've sold 7 tickets.
And I said, 7 tickets? It's got to be a directed denial of service attack. He said, that's what we thought. That's not it. When you click on the button, it just goes to a blank white screen. I was like,
Oh my God.
So they said, do you think it's the agency? And I said, no. The agency doesn't give a shit about me anymore. All my detractors are either dead or long retired.
Nobody cares.
I said, what about MI6? And they said that they have a retired MI6 officer in their stable of speakers. And he went back to MI6 and asked them. They said something interesting. They said, while we are aware of Mr. Kiriakou's tour, we have done nothing to impede it. Then it has to be Meta, right?
Right.
And he said, you know what? My ex-wife is the assistant general counsel. I'm going to call her. So he calls her. He's like, did you guys do this? And she said, yeah, we did it.
We don't like him.
And he said, you can't just take $100,000 in advertising and then just say, fuck you. And she said,
So sue us.
so I said, you going to sue them? And he goes, no, because all of our business is with Meta. You're the only one that they're blocking.
So I fucking sued him.
In the Northern District of Texas.
You sue Meta.
Yeah. They put me out of business. This was a major source of income. I was making
25 grand a night.
And are you allowed to use the information that your ex-wife gave up that they did?
His
it?
ex-wife.
Oh, his ex-wife, not your ex-wife. His ex-wife.
Oh, yeah, that's like the basis of the suit.
Oh my God.
So I hired this
Asshole.
who represents both the governor and the attorney general of Texas in their various lawsuits.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, oh, yeah, we'll take this. I said, I don't have any money to pay you. He said, we'll do it on contingency. I believe in this.
No fucking way.
Yeah. So anyway, because of you, Julian, and Dalton, it kind of lifted me to a higher level of podcast, right? That gave me better exposure in the UK and Ireland. They love me in Ireland.
And Rogan. You went on Rogan?
And then I did Tucker, and then I
Yep,
did Patrick
and
Bet
Tucker,
David, and then I
yes.
did Rogan. Rogan sort of broke the dam.
Are we allowed to put any of that in the show? Or
Oh yeah, I'll
the stuff about the meta stuff?
Sure.
That whole story about suing them and all that?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure because that was also a great story. We will leave out another story, which was
Thank you.
fucking bananas.
Oh, no, but I
wish we could keep on there.
I have one more that I'll protect the source of the story.
Prime Minister level up, he says that that we called their nuclear bluffs. You said that you were told unofficially that you knew that America knew where the nukes were. Do you think Americans told India that the control of Pakistani nukes also lies with America?
I doubt it. I doubt it because of the vociferousness with which the Pakistanis have come out publicly and said that they control the nukes. But I can tell you definitively that the State Department was telling both sides, if you're going to fight, fight. Keep it short and keep it non-nuclear. If nuclear weapons are introduced, the whole world is going to change. And so I think there was restraint on both sides. The Pakistanis need to come to a policy conclusion that there's nothing positive for them in fighting India. Nothing, literally nothing good will come of an actual war between India and Pakistan because the Pakistanis will lose. It's as simple as that. They'll lose. And I'm not talking about nuclear weapons. I'm talking just about a conventional war. The Pakistanis will lose.
Right.
And so there's no benefit to constantly provoking the Indians. That comes.
Keyword. Yeah.
Yeah. A smack across the face, that's not very nice. But it's probably not torture. But then you get into things like strip the guy naked, chain him to an eye bolt in the ceiling, and make it so he can't kneel or sit or lay or get comfortable in any way. Chill the cell to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and then throw a bucket of ice water on him every hour. We murdered prisoners with that technique. It's called the cold cell. Sleep deprivation is another one. Don Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense at the time, and he famously said that he didn't believe that there was such a thing. Killing everybody is a viable policy. You know, you can't have undergone a terrorist attack and then have your policy as to kill every man, woman, and child who breathes in Gaza. That's not a policy. That's a genocide. There are very clear laws about this, to which the Israelis, by the way, happen to be signatories. You cannot kill civilians. And they do it every single day, literally every single day.
You know, firing a couple of rockets at Iran is one thing, but sending ground troops is an entirely different thing. And then it should surprise no one that the Russians are giving the Iranians targeting data, just like we gave the Ukrainians targeting data, just like the Russians gave the North Vietnamese targeting data. This is what superpowers do. If we intend to put boots on the ground, then I think World War III would be something that we ought to be actively worried about. And it looks like we're putting boots on the ground. It's one thing to take Harg Island. It's one thing to take the Greater and Lesser Tunb Islands and give them back to Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. It's an entirely different thing to actually launch a land invasion of Iran. I can't imagine anything so stupid, so short-sighted, so criminally negligent as an actual ground invasion of Iran. These attacks are bad enough. They're crimes against humanity and war crimes. And, you know, we should take a message from the rest of the world. Just today, we're recording this on Monday morning. Earlier this morning, the government of Spain banned the former ambassador to Niger. How about if I ask him to go to Niger and ask the Nigerians if this actually happened? So he goes out there. What the heck's his name? He just died of a heart attack a couple of years ago. I forget now. But anyway, he flies out to Niger, talks to them. They're like, what? No. No Iraqis come here and ask us for yellow cake. And even if they had, we wouldn't have sold it to them. He comes back, tells the CIA, it's just not true. The CIA tells everybody else, it's just not true. Then he writes an op-ed in the Washington Post saying, I just got back from Niger. I was the ambassador there. This is the rumor. The rumor's not true. So Dick Cheney was so enraged that they would call him on the carpet like this, that he had the Deputy Secretary of State leak Valerie Plame's name to a syndicated columnist, Novak, who said, Joe Wilson is his name. Joe Wilson, nobody knows. Joe Wilson's wife works for the CIA, and the CIA doesn't want to fight Iraq, so they're covered up for the Iraqis.
My colleague explained it in great detail. And a lot of these techniques are not torture, right? If I grab you by the lapels and say,
Doggone you.
What the Taliban came to believe, they just didn't trust him. And he paid literally with his head. All the best. Hey everybody, John Kiriakou here. Wanted to say something important. Nick Galeotto and his family are national treasures. National treasures. And if you fuck with them,
You're gonna get the hummus.
you're going to get the hummus.
If you're lucky,
If you're not lucky, you're going to get.
47 cruise missiles.
So don't fuck with Galeottos, number one. Number two, I want to shout out to their business, Jackson Jace. Best custom jewelry and clothes you can get anywhere. So check it out. Third, I wanted to say something about the show American Dad. I was very surprised the first time I saw American Dad because it is A1 accurate. Seriously. In fact, this is the honest to God's truth. True story here. I was working directly for the director of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, and I invited him to my house for dinner, my wife and I. Invited him and his wife. It just so happened to be on a Sunday night, American Dad was on. And I turned it on, and I said, Bob.
You gotta see this new show.
I said, it's about you. He said, what do you mean it's about me? I said, it's about the director of the Counterterrorism Center. Check it out. So we watched the first 10 minutes. He's not saying a word. He's just looking at the screen. And then he said,
My God.
this show is about me. And I go, yes, it's about you. How crazy is that? They even have the design of the building correct. It's the craziest thing. That's the new headquarters building with a flagpole and everything. Just crazy. You know, there are a couple of things we're not supposed to talk about at the CIA. Liaison relationships, can't discuss. Sources and methods, you go to prison. And anything having to do with NSA. Did you know that the U.S. government did not admit that there was such a thing called NSA until
1976?
a chair, and I'll stand there and work for 24 hours, sometimes longer than 24 hours. That's not what we were talking about. What we're talking about is being stripped naked and chained to that eye bolt So you can't get comfortable knowing that the American Psychological Association has done studies showing that people begin to lose their minds at day 7 with no sleep. They begin to die from organ failure at day 9, but the CIA was authorized to keep patients, to keep prisoners awake for up to 12 days. Well, we murdered prisoners doing that. The Justice Department never said we could murder people. They said we could use these techniques, which are not torture. They're enhanced parts of the interrogation. Well, that was just silly. But then there were other things, especially with Abu Zubaydah, things that we did to Abu Zubaydah that were never authorized by anybody. We learned during an interrogation that Abu Zubaydah had an irrational fear of bugs. And so we put him in a coffin with a diaper. We poured a box of cockroaches on him and then closed the coffin and just listened to him scream.